Hi, welcome to the morebusiness.com podcast, everyone. I'm joined today by Nick Jordan, and talk about persistence. This guy will not give up. He has tried so many different things and has actually bounced back from one adventure to another adventure and is being successful doing it. And I know one of the challenges that all of us face is that sometimes we just get hit hard by life and things happen and you think, what am I going to do next? That's the story for today. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been so pumped all week to be here and share what I've learned, and hopefully it can help someone else push through the hard times they're dealing with.
Now, not everybody's familiar with your background. You and I had a chance to chat prior to this podcast, so maybe just take a moment and introduce the journey that you've been on so far.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been working on early stage startups for my entire career, starting at 19 to 35, first in a sales capacity. And then at some point I realized, hey, as an entrepreneur, or want to be an entrepreneur, sales, I don't think is actually the best skill set. I think it's marketing. And so 5 years, I set off on this 5-year plan to learn marketing so I could use it to go to market with my SaaS. And I'm in year 6.
And that's, I think, probably the biggest thing is just you're learning it, but then you're also adapting what you learn. You'd mentioned to me your journey started in college and then didn't go all the way. And tell me more about all that. And then you started a fashion startup. And so describe that part of the journey.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in college, I realized at some point my career options were either entrepreneur or become a criminal. And being an entrepreneur sounded a lot more fun. I ended up dropping out, starting a couple dinky startups that I really had no chance of going anywhere, but the hustle and the grit and the experience enabled me to get this job in an industry I didn't know existed for a role I wasn't qualified. And I ended up working at incredible scale. We grew to 200 people in 4 years, bootstrapped by just making a ton of cash. I was running our strategic partnerships with Rackspace and GoDaddy and AT&T and Comcast and other peers around the world. Youngest person in every room I went into, and outside of the CEO, probably the most cross-functional role in the organization. And there I really learned how to do good work. But as I said, I realized that sales and enterprise biz dev for me as an entrepreneur wasn't the right fit to build my own company.
A lot of companies try to grow through partnerships. And I know that, look, when I've built my companies, that was one of the fastest way to grow. But a lot of people don't know how to get started. And so you've done that. Employee number 8 there over at the Hacker News. Tell me, look, how did you start those relationships? Did you just pick up the phone and call? And if so, what did you say? Or were these relationships already built?
Yeah, so I met the founder at a Hacker News meetup, and he liked me enough to give me a job offer. When I joined the company, we had customers in over 50 countries with over 1,000 resellers basically wrapping our software around their services. And so my job was, all right, we have these IT consultants using us. How do we get the big boys, Rackspace, GoDaddy, AT&T? I think at the end of the 4 years there, we had about 30 telco hosting partners, and I think our products touched maybe 2 to 5 million end users through those partners.
How did you get these partners? Rackspace used to be one of my partners, and I'm happy to share the story actually of how I got them as a partner. I'd love to hear how you got them.
Yeah, so the CEO was ex-Microsoft, and he saw that Microsoft was doing a big push with Office 365, but didn't actually have a good way to onboard customers from Gmail or Exchange or all these other legacy mail servers. And so he built this really easy, cost-effective way to migrate data from one system to another. And we had the best product in the space. We were down the street from Microsoft HQ. And so as Microsoft would close these Office 365 partnerships, they bring us in to enable the customer onboarding. And so I don't think there's any secret success except for like right place, right time, right product. And the founder had 10 years in the industry.
That's pretty good. So when I worked with Rackspace, I didn't know anybody there, but what I did know was that they do a lot of webinars. And so I know that one of the things they want to do is help their resellers actually get a lot more customers to help basically resell Rackspace services. Right. And so what I did is I reached out to their partnership team who was doing those webinars. And I said, look, I think I've got a webinar that will help you guys sell more. And it was all about training your resellers to actually be able to sell more. And they thought it was a great idea. And next thing, we've got these wonderful webinars we're doing like every quarter. They even flew out to one of their conferences in Arizona and presented to a lot of their resellers. And it's literally, you just pick up the phone and you just call somebody. And I found that, wow, that no matter what stage you're in, you're selling, whether you're the CEO or the biz dev person. Now, I know you said you thought that wasn't the best career path for you because you're this budding entrepreneur. And I think a lot of people listening are feeling the same way. They're in a role that they're thinking, this is fine, but it's not where I really want to be. And I need to make a change. So what was that aha moment? How did you say, I'm going to stop all this and I'm going to go for it?
Yeah. So after 4 years, I think the catalyst for me leaving was burning out. It was unrelated to my ambitions as an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to IPO with the company. I was in it to win it and I was going to be there forever when I joined. And unfortunately, that turned out to not be the case. Towards the end, I wasn't learning anything. I closed 30 of these partnerships. I wasn't going to learn a lot more in the 31st. And so I think once the service area for learning went away, then all the stress I'd been dealing with for the last 4 years become unbearable. When you're pushing and you're learning and you're improving and you're leveling up, you can deal with any amount of stress. But once you kind of level, the stress for me became overwhelming. And so I took 6 months on a beach and I thought about what do I want to do next? And I'd been an entrepreneur for the 5 years before that company. And I had intended to use that as a platform to build my own company. But as a 29-year-old, I just didn't have the confidence in myself to build an enterprise product, an enterprise support team, an enterprise legal team. And so this enterprise skill set I had accumulated, I don't think was going to serve me on the next stage of my journey. And so the way that I've looked at every opportunity for the last 15 years is whether it makes me rich or not, I'm going to learn the skills and meet the people to do something even bigger and higher impact next. And so I've always thought long. And I said, Nick, I got to learn this marketing thing. One-to-one there's not high volume enough. I need to do one-to-many. I need to figure out this marketing thing. And so I took a 75% pay cut from my high status tech job and I started making minimum wage selling SEO services at a local SEO agency because I knew that it was a consultative sale. In order to successfully sell it, I have to learn it. And I ended up being very good at selling it. I ended up learning it. I ended up taking a couple projects from 0 to 100,000 organics a month. And that led to starting my agency. And then the agency led to bootstrapping some SaaS products. And it's working. 6 years into my 5-year plan.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in just that short comment you just made. You had an agency and that was cash flow because it was consulting work and you're using that cash flow to create a product. So that's very common. That's actually how I started my very first one also, because you need cash to live. You need to have teams to support. They need to live. So you need that cash to come in. And without having venture-backed money, which that can be a slippery slope for a lot of people also, because you don't own the company at that point. They're doing what someone else is telling you to do. So it takes away a bit of that independence, which is one of the reasons many people want to start their company in the first place. So you've got an agency, you learn a new skill, and that's pretty critical also, right? Because I know that I'm a trained electrical engineer. I made electronic circuits for years, worked on semiconductors, and I was like, this is just not fulfilling for me. And I had to learn a new skill. And quite frankly, I graduated college a while back, so everything evolves. Even if I was still an electrical engineer, I would have had to still learn so many new things. So this constant learning, I think, is just such a critical piece of anyone's success. Like never stop learning. So
Not only is it critical, but I think that's what ultimately draws me to entrepreneurship is the unlimited surface area for learning. I can jump in and out of every aspect of our company. I can take something nothing to as much fun as I've had with it and then hand it off to someone else and go learn something else. And I think ultimately entrepreneurship's a great vehicle for lifelong learners.
Yeah, it definitely is. So you've got an agency and then the aha moment of starting something in SaaS. Now, people always ask, what kind of business should I start? That's a really big question. It's something a lot of folks grapple with. How did you know? How did you know what to?
Yeah, I think I've heard Naval talk about product market founder fit. A good idea for me isn't a good idea for you, depending on our unique experiences and skill sets and kind of our journey over the prior time. But really, as an SEO agency, I was known for being a good SEO, and the most likely product that people would buy from me was an SEO product. And so that's what I built first.
What was that product?
So at my agency, we're known for this thing called content velocity, publishing hundreds of pages a month. And in order to actually deliver that service to clients, we had to do a whole bunch of keyword research. And so I ended up automating that process. And it turns out that it wasn't just a good product for me. We have over 4,500 users. I think our coolest customer is Let's Deal, which I just saw a graph, and I guess they're one of the most 10 or 15th most valuable companies, private companies in the last 10 years.
Well, that's pretty good. I know that keyword research is the biggest step in SEO. A lot of times people think, I just need to write content. I'm going to hire a writer. And they say, I just saw this the other day. Hey, I want to hire a writer that knows SEO. And my experience has been a lot of writers don't know SEO. A lot of people, there's this confusion that, oh, I'll just stick a bunch of keywords into an article and that's it. And they don't even research what the keywords are. SEO is so much more than that.
Here's
So
here's
much
what I
more.
like to say. Whenever a writer says that they know SEO, what they don't mean is that they have consistent processes to rank content. What they actually mean is they've read a couple Moz blogs and watched a couple of Neil Patel videos.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
actually had systems and processes to consistently rank content, they wouldn't be a writer. They would be an SEO manager.
I know keyword research, you've got to use tools. You've got to figure out what's being searched on. You got to look at keyword difficulty, breadth, all that kind of stuff. So those are pretty important things to know. So then on your journey, now how do you get the clients? So 4,500 clients is pretty sizable for any business. How did you ramp up to that?
Yeah.
Customers.
4,500
Yeah.
customers.
How did you get that?
Yeah. Going back to long-term thinking, I did two things when I started the agency. The first is I started building my brand on social, LinkedIn and Facebook specifically. And I have this whole kind of social funnel that allows me to attract attention, funnel it to my landing, like thought leadership, and then convert people throughout the content. But I ended up generating over $100,000 in consulting revenue before we had a website. And the reason is the brand. The second thing I did was build a community. So actually, I did this before the SaaS product. I didn't know what I was going to build, but I knew that whatever it was I was going to build and sell, it'd be easier if I had a community. And so I started funneling my audience into a Facebook group. And so when we launched, we already had this audience that trusted me as a high performer in the SEO world. And they wanted access to anything that I was doing, whether it's tools or processes or systems. They just want to replicate my results. And so it was a very easy sell because it was like, you want to rank content and take projects from 0 to 1.5 million organics a month like me. Here's the tool stack. You can do it now.
Give me an example of what that process was like for social, because a lot of times people will post on social and they get paid. The phrase, you get paid in likes.
Yeah.
And likes aren't cash. And so how did you convert that to cash? So you're starting to post on social. What kind of process did you to build your content, get the word out? Were there hashtags? Did you tag people? What was it that you did that generated the impact that you did, which resulted in people reaching out to you and saying, hey, here's my money, help me out?
So likes aren't cash, likes aren't revenue, but I can attribute millions of dollars in consulting revenue and all of my SaaS revenue to social. A lot of people don't get it. You know, what LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter want to do is they want to keep you on the platform. So the more engaging your content is, the more they'll show it to your audience to keep them on the platform and keep them scrolling the newsfeed. And basically, if you look at my LinkedIn, the headline is 0 to 1.5 million organics a month. That's a really impressive stat for anyone who knows SEO. There's not a lot of projects that make it so far. And initially, I started off creating just value on my newsfeed. I spent a lot of time on the newsfeed, creating value for other people, sharing everything that I've learned. Ultimately, just stepping back a second, the strategy overall would be called do good work, document that good work, distribute the documentation. And so it all starts off with being an expert in your craft and then documenting that and then distributing it. So I make all this noise on social on the newsfeed. What I found is that the more you put into engaging on LinkedIn, the more engagement LinkedIn gives you back. And I just started getting all of these views and people would see the headline. They click into my profile. It's optimized to drive people to my case study on how I did that 0 to 1.5 million organic a month project. And then in that case study, it's 7,000 words. It's like all of my most valuable information. And by the time you're done reading it, you're like, Nick's the best SEO in the world. And if I can't hire him, I at least got to use his tools. Join his Facebook group. And so I get people on LinkedIn. I funnel them to the Facebook group where I get their email. I funnel them to YouTube. And now I take people from one channel and I bring them to all my other channels. So regardless of where they're spending their time, they're going to see me.
I love what you said about I gave them my most valuable stuff, because there's a lot of people that look like, oh, I'm a consultant. I'm very guarded about what I share. But honestly, I have found in the many years and the 3 companies that I've built, which all went sold to public companies, if the more you give away, you're right. People will see that's the expert. That's the one I want to use. And the line I like to use is show someone how to do something in excruciating detail, and they will hire you to do it.
It works so well
consistently.
Happens. Yeah. It takes a ton of time to create original content, but that 3 months of full-time effort I put into 20 pages of content 3 years ago has paid dividends. I haven't updated the content in 3 years. I don't even think about it, but every single month, every single week, actually, I just looked at my stats. I'm getting an average of 14 inbound demos for just the consulting side, let alone the SaaS side every month from the content I created 3 years ago.
Yeah, look at that. If that's a lesson to learn right there, just spend time building up your content, set aside a weekend, an afternoon, an evening if you're consulting during the day, and just really get your material together. That's really
So, and by the
important.
time people speak to me, they've been following my content for months, if not years. And so they feel like they know me, they like trust me. They don't have a lot of questions around like how we're going to execute because they already know the process. They just want to talk to me and see if I'm as cool as I am on their LinkedIn feed. It makes sales really easy.
So in business, it's never a straight line. You took a 75% pay cut to restart your career. So you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And that's been my life. That's just all it's, and especially if you're doing consulting, my gosh, sometimes it's just feast or famine. You're thinking, oh my God, I have too much work to do. I can't even see my family. Sorry, everybody, I'm out. I'm not in for dinner tonight. And then other times you're just twiddling your thumbs thinking, when's the next client going to come in? Oh,
it's true.
There is that, which is why I love SaaS businesses, because it makes your revenue flow a much more consistent thing. But nevertheless, you still have times when you wake up on a Tuesday morning and you're thinking, oh my God, what happened overnight? Something could put me out of business by next week. I've had that many times, lost a lot of sleep. And you're trying to keep a straight face on for your family, driving the kids to school in my case and all that. Tell me, give me an example of something that happened.
Yeah.
And there's probably 100 of them, right?
Yeah. So I'll tell you about the biggest, and I'd say definitely the most challenging like year of my career. So we did 100K first year, we did 500K the second year in the consulting, we did $1 million the third year, and then we lost 80% of that when the client we took from 0 to 1.5 million organics a month, and from seed stage to a $210 million valuation by A16 canceled with 30-day notice. And I didn't realize at the time how important the termination period was. I didn't realize I could get fired after doing such a good job and was still doing such a good job. And ultimately, the reason they fired me was because they outgrew us. We were publishing 600 pages a month. They wanted to do 2,000. And I simply couldn't scale the agency past that. And after waiting for us to do it for 6 months, they just terminated it. We lost 80% of our revenue in those 30 days. And that led to the worst year of my life. And
oh my God, you're going from $1 million to 200, and you've got staff at this point, so they still need to get paid.
That's even worse. I just convinced my sister to quit her recruiting job at Amazon and move to Europe to help me grow the team. And I had to terminate her and send her back to America.
Oh my God, that's so hard.
And I had to figure out how to take the agency from like basically a one client agency into a multi-client agency. The tough thing about entrepreneurship, I was thinking about this, is that if you're in a, I guess, negative job environment, employees can leave. They could just quit and they can take a break. Maybe if they don't have a lot of money, they move back in with their mom or whatever, but they can at least leave. And like that for me wasn't an option. I had to put myself in this stressful, anxiety causing situation for the last year because there's too many people depending on me and I wouldn't have anything to go back to if I left it. I'm just coming off of that year. Things are like going great now, but it was a truly tough time.
That is tough. And you just try to think, oh my God, what's happening? Why is this happening to me? But there's a big lesson in here. And I know every time I've sold a company, the number one question, and it happens very quickly, is what percent of your revenue comes from your top 10 clients? And it is consistent. Every single time I've sold a company, that's the one I've been asked, because they want to know, how dependent are you? They know they're going to have attrition when they buy you. They just don't know how much that's going to impact the revenue, because that will affect your valuation. And I've seen situations where you've got 2 or 3 clients that comprise the bulk of your revenue. And that makes your company really hard to sell, because there's too much inherent risk built into losing one customer for the exact reason that you just described. And I had a guest on the podcast just a couple of weeks ago, Von Thurman, same situation. He had 2 clients that comprised 60% of his revenue. Both of them terminated within 30 days. And boy, he had to scramble. And he did the same thing, though, as you. Like, you persistent. You do not give up. You're an entrepreneur. You get out there and you figure out what you're going to do next. So what happened, Nick? You go from $1 million to 200,000. You have to fire your sister, send her back to America. Yeah. Oh my God. And now what happens? How did you get out of it?
So I think it's like definitely like a team effort. I had to make big layoffs. I had to just pound sales. I had to shift all my focus to sales, building that brand up and doing the activities that I knew would drive the revenue. At the same time, the team had to figure out how to go from servicing one client, which is one relationship and one strategy, to onboarding and creating strategies and delivering strategies for multiple clients at the same time. And so both me and the service delivery team had a lot to figure out. And I think with just enough reps, they were able to figure it out. And my brand was good enough where, so there's two things. One, usually when agencies have major structural issues like that, it's related to service delivery or there's some serious problems with the sales. Neither of those were true. Our team are like killers. And then on the sales side, I had just been turning down deals. So I just started going to the phone calls I'd been rejecting because I was all in on this one client, and we were able to pick back off.
And the other
really,
thing,
you had a strong foundation.
Foundation, and you were out there on social, and your name brand was still out there. So you're right. Okay, so we're not going to turn down clients as much. You're going to start to build that back up. But when you get knocked off the bicycle, you get back on it. Underlying all this is inspiration, is drive. What inspires you? What drives you?
Before we talk about inspiration, let's talk about a little bit why the worst year of my life. I've been in this game for 15 years. I'm not like millionaires. And so my entrepreneurial career has always been hard. Like I've always consistently struggled the entire time. And it was different this time because I had gone so far, and at least in my eyes, I had met the goals I set for myself 15 years ago as a 19-year-old. I had new goals at that point, but I at least hit the 19-year-old self's goals. And so I think it's a lot different when I didn't want to bounce off of zero again. You mentioned that earlier. It's not a straight line. It's ups and downs. But at this point in my career, I'm 35. I had achieved some sort of scale, some sort of success, and losing that felt a lot worse than struggling to get it to begin with.
That's so true. It rings so true. Yeah, especially you've hit it. You hit that dream, and then
So that I think
it's emotionally very hard. It's emotionally very hard. You really rethink everything about yourself.
Another thing that makes it tough is you have this idealized version of yourself in your head that after 15 years, I'm good at what I do. But ultimately, the way entrepreneurs are judged is by the points on the scoreboard. And the scoreboard was looking real bad. And so to reconcile between these thoughts that I had about myself and the scoreboard being so poor, also very difficult for me.
Yeah. Look, there's going to be people listening to this and saying, yeah, I can relate to that because it's a fact of life. That's what happens in life. Nothing's all this wonderful, rosy story. And so, what are the things that you did to come out of that? Because that could put you into depression really fast also.
Yeah, I was in a very negative mind space. I'm also out here in Europe where I don't have a strong network. I just didn't invest the time into building strong relationships out here outside of my work. And it was tough. So I think there's a couple things that I did. The first is taking action. Whenever I'm stressed out, taking action always makes me feel better. Like I despite the scoreboard, I still believe that the best bet is always on myself every single time, and that I won't let myself down. And so I just dove heads into the things that needed to be done. The second thing is I threw myself into fitness. In life, especially knowledge workers, especially entrepreneurs, like you said, the path isn't straight. But with fitness, you can see linear progress week over week if your diet and your programming is dialed in. And that's the one area of my life where I could see consistent progress. And I think besides the physical benefits, the mental benefits cannot be stated more clearly. Like it makes you feel so much better. It's hard to be anxious after you slept for 2 hours.
It sure is. Yeah. Exercise is definitely a big part of life. And for me, it's actually music also. Like a lot of people look at behind my chair is my drum set, and I still play it every now and then. It's something I used to do since I was in 5th grade, and I still love it. And just those types of things give me a bit of happiness in my life. In your answer, you did answer what inspires you and what drives you, but maybe you could elaborate on that. This is tough to bounce back from such a tough loss in revenue, a tough blow to what you're describing as your ego. Like, I'm here. I've quote unquote made it. And then suddenly back down again, and you have to restart and not start from scratch. But boy, you have to be scrappy, figure out ways to survive, and then get back to thriving. So what drives you?
I mentioned earlier, entrepreneurship provides unlimited service area for learning. I think I also have a lot of fun. I'm just like, I don't have hobbies. I have work, and I like to do hard things with smart people. And the people around me are absolutely incredible. And they put up with my behavior and kind of the emotional trauma I've been going through. They recognized it, gave me a little space, and they were high performers themselves. And so they could pick up in the areas of the business where I wasn't performing at the level I needed to. I think it's also having a big chip on your shoulder. I have something to prove. Growing up, I was in special ed classes due to severe ADHD and behavioral issues. And I think growing up, I just didn't have a lot of people in my life we're pretty sure I was going to go down that criminal route I was talking about earlier. I just want to let my mom know she was right for betting on me, and show my dad he was wrong for telling me to get a job, and all the teachers that, all like giant chip.
That's a driver, because a lot of times people will think, oh my gosh, life isn't working out, I'll just go get a job, I'll just deal with it. And honestly, once you've been bitten by that entrepreneurial bug, that is hard to get rid of. That you can't get that out of your system. But having that thing like, oh, I got to prove something, can do it. Something like, it sounds simple, but that can actually do it. That can push you forward. What are the other sources of inspiration you have?
So we have learning, doing hard things with smart people, the giant chip on my shoulder. I think I was thinking about it, even if I knew 30 years from now, I could tell I never made any money with entrepreneurship, I think I'd still do it anyways, because I just have so much fun here. I think I'm unemployable. I can't do the 9 to 5 and not care and clock out and not think about work 24/7. So I just love the lifestyle. Like I like pushing myself and the people around me to the limits of our capabilities.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Nick. Hey, so if we would summarize what you learned out of all of this, you're continuing on your entrepreneur path. There's a lot of people that would be listening that could say, that's me. I want to start doing it, but I'm a little scared because of everything you just said that could happen, because it's scary. And sometimes I wonder myself, if I knew all that stuff that was about to unfold over the next 20 years of my life, my entrepreneurial career, would I have started? And I think back and I was like, yeah, I would have done it. I would have done it again. I'm in a much happier state. I feel like I'm not going to be retiring thinking, I wish I would have, I should have. You did it. You tried it. And even though you get knocked down, you get back up and you just keep going. So what are your key learnings? What would you summarize?
I really like when Naval Ravikant said that careers aren't measured in months or years, they're measured in decades. So like everyone kind of starts their startup with thought like could get rich like super fast. And it doesn't happen that way. We're not Mark Zuckerberg. We're not Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. I read this study that the most successful entrepreneurs are in their probably early 40s. And it's because they have the network, they have the skill set, they have the cash, they have the experience and kind of the level-headed mind to really be much more effective than they were while you're young. So I think that's a big one.
That's a good one. And I know, so I worked as an engineer for 8 years after college, and I was still working as an engineer. I wanted to start a company. I think I was 27 years old, and I was like, I got to do this. And I look back on it and I think I should have started sooner, actually, because I had that itch so long ago. I should have probably just maybe worked a couple of years and then started. But nevertheless, the journey unfolded and I was happy. And I can tell you that the second one that I started actually was significantly more stable, because I knew a lot.
Yeah.
I was older and I knew a lot. I was still in my 30s actually when I started the second one, but it definitely helped knowing where the potholes were to avoid. So we were able to scale significantly faster. So how can people reach you? I love your story. I love the fact that you're an expert at SEO. That's one of my bailiwicks too. I love SEO. I think honestly, it is one of the most underrated marketing tactics on the planet today. Was one of the most misunderstood and most underrated. So
it is. No one can distribute your content better than Google.
Yeah.
It's literally impossible for you to do it. Google is just so effective at getting your content out the door. Before we recap, level off with where to find me, let's talk about very quickly, just run through some list of wins, because there is if you can pull through, you will get back on that horse and you'll resume the kind of trajectory that you're on. On the agency side, we're booked out until February. We have onboardings every month, and including with some really incredible brands. On the SaaS side, we just hit year 1 of our launch of the second SaaS, worked as talent assessment platform. We closed Forbes. Forbes is a paying customer now. IKEA signed up last week. We have about 90 paid customers and I think something like 60K ARR.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's some pretty big brand names as your clients. I love that. And you can use that to build out your ideal client profile, your ICP, and find more clients just like them.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
Everything's looking good. Despite the impending recession, it seems like I'm back on the up ramp. So we'll see if I can hold that for the next 2 years until the next positive business cycle.
Yeah.
I love the quote. The only way to lose is to quit. And if you don't quit, you can't lose. Even if it sucks for multiple years, you didn't lose yet. As long as you don't quit.
You remind me of something my old accountant used to tell me. And she'd always say, Raj, you're not doing so well financially here. You should really rethink what you're doing. And I'm like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We're going to get through this. Don't worry. And we did. And then years later, we're selling like the next company and stuff. And yeah, don't let don't let falling off the bicycle keep you off the bicycle.
So I'll leave you with
Yeah.
one more painful anecdote. Right
Yeah.
before I was starting the agency that I grew to 1 million in 3 years, I was on a family vacation with my mom, and we were coming back, and I had $3,000 in my bank account. And I was like, Mom, can I borrow 10K? And like, she said no. And I just felt so sad. Man, I this is going to be hard. This is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
She said no, and I made it work anyways. As long as you don't give up, you don't lose.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to tell people where to find me.
Yeah. So I have a quick story just like that. I remember I quit my full-time job. I proposed to my then girlfriend, who's been my wife for a long time now, on the same weekend. I think there's some stat that there's 5 biggest stressors in your life, and I did 2 of them on one weekend.
Yeah.
And so 8 months later, we get married, come back, and I'm overdrawn on my bank account. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, she's probably thinking, I married this unemployed guy, former engineer, could have had a nice job.
Now he's playing the drums.
And now he's playing the drums, right? And his bank account is overdrawn. Oh my gosh. So that was the start of my entrepreneurial career. And you just do not give up. I'm like, okay, what do I got to? And I used to play basketball twice a week with my friends. And I was like, okay, that's got to stop for at least a while. I got to still stay fit, but I got to do my social activities. I wasn't going to the parties and all that. And I just buckled down. And for a solid year, I just worked my tail off. And next thing you know, we're starting to build revenue. We're starting to get cash in, and then things started to happen. But never give up. Oh, what a story of persistence that you've got too. So thank you, Nick. How do people reach you?
Yeah. So if you're interested in SEO, you can join our Facebook group. It's called Fat Graph Content Ops. We're all about graphs that go like this, not like this.
Okay.
You can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Nick from Seattle. And then you could check out Workello.com. We publish all of our kind of SEO playbooks on how you can replicate our success for free.
Very good. Nick, thank you so much. I wish you continued success and hope to talk to you again soon.
Raj, thanks a lot.